everyone, it's me, Mitch Murphy, the Redpill rapper on thoughtcrimes.ca. I got a very special guest with me today, and I actually never asked you, my man, would you like to stay anonymous today, or do you want to get your name out there?
I'm okay with getting my name out there. It's out there anyway.
All right. Well, tell the people what your name is, because I think your name is very important, and I think we might be hearing more of it in the future here.
Thank you very much for having me on here today, Mitch. My name is Tobias Tissen. I'm a minister at the Church of God in Steinbach, Manitoba. And most of you have probably heard or seen at least a bit about me lately because we've been into some adventures, I'll just say.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of you, online, and obviously, like, I haven't seen much of you in the mainstream, but in the underground media world, I've sure been seeing your name a lot. The big one, and the one that, to be honest, was the big reason that I wanted to get you on the show, was your interaction with the RCMP officer. That was, and I think you and I have got a lot to talk about today, but that's the big one that I'm really looking forward to digging into that with you.
Yeah, for sure. You're probably referring to my latest one where it was where he pulled me over.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
Because you were out there with Warren, right? The guy. So if the people aren't aware, there's a man who is carrying, I believe it's 60 pounds, isn't it? That cross that he's got across his back.
80 pounds. What he said.
80 pounds. So this thing weighs 80 pounds. It's a gigantic white cross that says veterans, and it's just got a message of, freedom. And then doesn't it also say something about how our veterans aren't asking for too much? Is that correct?
Right. He has veterans in big, and then underneath he's written they're not asking for too much.
Yeah, and I would imagine that's referencing Trudeau's comment, right? Because I remember he told that veteran pre-corona that the veterans are asking too much, which is incredible now. I mean, obviously hindsight is 2021, but that comment that he made has not aged well. I'll tell you that.
No, definitely not.
So what were you guys doing with him that day? Because I saw you guys had a bit of a gathering there. What was the situation there?
Well, literally, we just came there to see his cross, meet up with him, and show him some support from Manitoba. He's been getting a lot of support, I think, all along the way, and we thought, you know what, we're not going to leave that out here in Winnipeg. So we met by, I think it's called a war memorial or something. There was this monument there from World War II, and we stood around there for a while. I said a prayer, and then we kept walking to our legislative grounds, which was literally like half a mile away. So we all walked over there, and there was other monuments there that we stood around. There was specifically one from the Holocaust time frame. So we stood around there, visited, and had a good time. What was interesting enough is that there was like a big presence of police in the area. Some were literally driving up and down the highway, doing U-turns and just observing us the entire time. And public health was there, Manitoba Justice was there. And at one point, Manitoba Justice slowly drove by. They stood at a light that was flashing green. It was green and red. It didn't matter. They kept staying there. They had their windows rolled down. There was 3 of them in there, and all of them had their phones out recording us. But nobody approached us. Nobody approached us. They literally left us to do what we wanted. Thinking logically, you would think that they would come and say, you know what you're doing is not allowed right now. You should disperse, but they never did that. They literally waited until some of us left, and then they pulled us over in our vehicles. I was pulled over. I know for sure two others that got pulled over.
Excuse me. So the people that are watching you, did you say that they were bylaw or they were RCMP, or who were those people that are watching you?
So we have public health, Manitoba Public Health, and police was there, but the ones filming us, they were Manitoba justice officials.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's a separate branch, because that's, and the point of confusion here for the listeners is that I'm in British Columbia, I'm in the Okanagan, and so here we have a designated bylaw officers, which I believe that they've hired a lot of extra ones, you know, just to, because you know, how else are they going to pay for all the serve, right? Not all of us are still working, so they got to collect money somehow. I know you've heard all about tax collectors of the old times, you know. That's sure what I think.
Like our premier here has hired private firms to help with this, and I've even heard of people reaching out to others, like, you know, hiring basically for the snitch line, and I've heard it's something like $20 an hour job, literally.
Wow.
For people to just sit around and observe if there's more than whatever 2-3 vehicles on the yard, and then send somebody over there.
That is amazing. That they're the people that have worked through the whole pandemic, you know, that have, you know, like me, I'm a service plumber, right? Like I go into people's houses every day and I fix their plumbing, and I haven't stopped. And there's a lot of us like that. And what they do is they take our money to hire these people to take more of our money for wanting to live our lives. You know, it's just amazing. It's absolutely incredible. So you leave this gathering, right, where you're gathered together to draw attention to the veterans and the loss of freedoms in this country. You're driving away, and you get pulled over by the RCMP. Is that, like, how soon after you drove away did you see the RCMP coming up?
So I had some friends along, and as we were walking back to our vehicle, I observed on the opposite side of the street there was a boulevard in between, and there was a street going the opposite direction, and I saw a Manitoba marked vehicle, which I knew was public health officials inside.
Right.
So told them, just watch them follow us right away. And I saw literally as we were approaching our vehicle, they put their truck in gear and they were going to make a U-turn and then follow us. So we left, and then we had to drive towards the legislative building to turn on to a highway to go on our way. So at the legislative grounds, there was a police vehicle facing us. So they saw us leave. As soon as we turned that street, they were right on our tails. And I knew, yeah, this is it. This is what they're after. And there was traffic lights right there, so they couldn't pull me over. I turned left, and as I turned left, they put their lights on and pulled me over.
Okay, all right. And so that it was, and just again for the listeners, just to make sure they're up to speed with where we're at, this video blew my mind, because the guy comes up to the window, right? The officer, and he's not being overly confrontational as far as I can tell, but he's right away, he's asking for your information. And when I first started watching the video, I thought, man, this guy Tobias is being kind of unreasonable. Why doesn't he want to give his registration? You know, because you were showing him your registration, right? But you weren't passing it through the window. And it wasn't until so, because you said something to the policeman about how you didn't think you were being pulled over for a traffic violation, right?
Yeah, I told him, look, I don't think you're pulling me over for that. Because he said, I want to check if your registration is up to date.
Right.
So, you know, somebody later told me I should have told him, you know what, just run my license plate and you'll know if my registration is up to date. I should have said that, but hindsight, you know more, you learn more. But, you know, I gave it after he threatened to arrest me.
Yeah.
That's when I gave my information. I said, look, if you're not coming back with a traffic ticket, then I know you fooled me. So.
And guess what he came back with, hey?
He came back and he said, your information is all good, all up to date, nothing wrong, but you broke the public health order. So as far as I know, in Manitoba, there is limits for indoor gatherings. So indoors we're allowed up to 5. I don't know what that is outdoors, and masks are not mandatory outdoors. So, I mean, we could have probably done a better job at social distancing, but
you got to live. You got to live, you know?
Yeah.
And something that I was really just taken aback by is that a quote unquote public servant lied to your face. You know, said I pulled you over for a traffic violation and then gave you a ticket for attending this event. Now, I haven't looked into it, but are you aware of whether or not he's allowed to do that? Is he at liberty to lie in that scenario?
I don't know either. I was actually very curious myself to just call the RCMP in Winnipeg and say, you know what, this is what happened. Are your constables allowed to lie to us like this?
Yeah, because I know that there's some in different countries, there's different laws about interrogation techniques. And I'm not saying that you were under interrogation. I think you were being interrogated, but not in the technical sense of the term. Where it's in certain countries, you're allowed to lie to the witness and say, say you're on trial for murder, you're allowed to lie and say, oh, we got your fingerprints at the scene, you better confess. And some countries, you're not allowed to do that. And I'm really curious to find out as to whether or not he's allowed to do that, or if maybe it's a gray area, because I was so blown away by that video, because when we see a police car, we're supposed to feel safer. You know what I mean? We're supposed to feel like, oh, thank goodness, if something goes on, we've got this public servant that's there to help us. But
Yeah.
but due to the rules that are being put in place, they are very rapidly becoming our enemy. And I'm curious. I hope I don't push that opinion onto you if that's not what you agree with, but that's coming from me, is that I think that's what's happening very rapidly, is that a lot of people such as myself who've been pro-police, thin blue line supporters in the past, are turning into not so much that. Would you agree with that statement? Or
For those that saw my video, I didn't have the chance to. I was really tempted. I was looking through my rear view mirror, and I could see that the officials were not, when they took my information, they went straight behind the police cruiser. There was that SUV with Manitoba justices parked there, and behind that a minivan with public health officials. So there was like 3 vehicles pulling me over. So, and I was like, can I get out of my vehicle and film them what they're doing back there? And I was like, I did not want to get into more trouble than I am. So I didn't, but there was literally 3 vehicles behind me, and I agree with what you're saying. I've been always very much for supporting the police, but when their concern is to just follow these orders in order to keep their paycheck, instead of doing what their job is, which is protecting us and keeping us safe and upholding our Constitution, that's where a lot of confidence is being lost in their title and in their position.
And some of these people, and I like to use some I don't know if derogatory is the right word, but I like to use some terms with negative connotation about people that support the mandates, like a tinfoil masker, and somebody like that who believes in the mask and all, believes in the mandates and these things. The argument that they would make, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, is they would say, well, he is keeping everyone safe because he's preventing you and people like you from gathering, because you can spread the virus and all these things. But something that I really don't understand is how are people missing the fact that that exact same logic is 100% applicable to the seasonal flu. If we get rid of this coronavirus, that same argument is just as valid, if that's what you believe, about the seasonal flu, because you can pass the seasonal flu to everybody in that crowd, and everybody in that crowd will be in contact with somebody's grandma. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how people can support what's happening, and especially watching videos like yours. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get it. I don't get the logic behind it either. I mean, we've not even heard of the seasonal flu this year, because all of it is COVID all of a sudden, and there's no seasonal flu.
Yeah. Now that's starting to sound like conspiracy theory on the Redpill Rapper Show. Now, are you on a thought criminal registry out there? Like, have you been going out to these protests and events, or what kind of things have you been up to out there?
My very first ticket I got was for November 14th. We had a rally in Sandback, which I was speaking at. I was one of the speakers, and it was a nice turnout. Like some estimate close to 1,000, maybe a bit more.
Wow.
We're out, and we had a car drive afterwards, with signs taped onto our vehicles, and some thought there was close to 500 vehicles out there. So it was a nice turnout. I really enjoyed it. So, and since then, my next event was December 20th at the Winnipeg Legislative Grounds. We did some caroling. I preached a little bit about the birth of Jesus, and it was more like Christmas focused. So got a ticket for that one just several weeks later. They always come later, like. And we have one coming up this upcoming Saturday here in Steinbach at City Hall this time. And I think I'm gonna just tell the police right up from while I'm doing my speech, I'm gonna tell them, you all have the opportunity to become heroes right now if you would just join the people and do what you swore to do, what you swore in your oath. If you would just do that, you'd be heroes right now. And I want to tell them also, but if you don't want to do that, then please man up and come up here and give me a ticket in front of everybody, and don't do your coward's work of coming with 4 or 5 people later on to my front door.
I think that's so well put. I think that you just nailed it. That's perfect. And it's so
Thinking that as far as what you said about being on the criminals list, I was a little bit worried, but I'm in contact with the chief of police here in Steinbach, and I asked him, and he said, well, you only got criminal record once we take your fingerprints. So they haven't done that yet. And so he said, this is just a bylaw. It's not law. It's like a mandate. It's a bylaw. It's a regulation. So I don't think that, well, maybe in the future they're going to put us on the criminal list if we keep going this way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see gulags in our future. I mean, that's a little hyperbolic, but I think that might be the direction that we're headed. But it's funny because my whole life I've been interested in conspiracy theories and things like that. And I was at church last weekend. I was at church, and we had RCMP and 3 different media outlets show up. And we had a policeman use a back door that kind of got in a separate hallway, and he was knocking on the door for a solid 5 minutes trying to get in. And I think the music must have been too loud because we just couldn't hear. Otherwise, obviously, we would have let him in. But it just blows my mind because that's a conspiracy theory. Like, if I were to tell you that is what my Sunday afternoon was going to look like, if I told you that in 2015, 2018, people would have said I was out of my mind. They would have said I was crazy, and we'll never see that day in Canada. But it's here. It's here.
Yeah. Well, listen to this. I don't know if you've heard this story, if that story has come to you, but we've had on November 29th, we've had police blocking our driveway to church.
No.
Yeah,
What?
I guess you haven't seen that story yet. So we had November 11th, they came in with more mandates, restrictions. Code Red came in, and they said you cannot have church. So November 22nd, we still had an in-person church gathering, and we got fined for that. Myself and the church as well. So that happened, and then we said, okay. Following that, they said drive-in church is illegal as well. So we thought, well, we're just going to prove a point here by doing drive-in anyway, because look, in Costco, people can go parking in the parking lot, go inside and shop. At Walmart, same thing. People can be at a Tim Hortons drive-through, bumper to bumper, no problem. All of a sudden, church parking lot is a big no-no. So we thought we'll leave the in-person gathering for now. We'll do a drive-in, and we'll stream everything via FM transmission to the vehicles, and we'll do it that way. So we posted it on Facebook. We shared it for everybody that wanted to come out and support, and lots of people were planning to come. And then we see a post in the local news that police said we're not interested in handing out a lot of fines. We just want to prevent a gathering. And I went, okay, what do they mean by prevent? So I had my alerts up. I thought they might actually, I did not expect they totally would, but I had it in the back of my mind, they might actually block us. And that's what happened. I went there an hour early, and some of us were there that early, like the sound team and our own interim security team. So we were there getting ready, and about 45 minutes before it started, RCMP cruiser came along and just literally blocked off the entrance to our parking lot. So people came by, parking on the shoulder. We waited until there was a large crowd, and all of a sudden people just were attempting to just pull in anyway. So they blocked the entire highway. we had worship singing blasting over loudspeakers from our building. It could be heard all over the highway. We drove a pickup truck close to where the police had blocked it, and I got onto the bed of the truck, had a microphone system. I was speaking a bit from over there, and then police called in a tow truck, believe it or not, to tow a vehicle away.
What?
A minivan with a family inside, a family of I think 6 children, aged from like 16 all the way to what is it, 1-year-old in there, the youngest, like a family inside, and they were going to tow it away. So I stood between the tow truck and that vehicle with a number of supporters, and they told us, get out of the way, you're interfering with police right now. And I turned around and looked at them and I said, no way, right now you are interfering with God. So I said a prayer over there, and literally not even a minute afterward, police comes back and ordered this tow truck away. So
wow. Hey, praise Jesus. Praise Jesus. Absolutely. That's incredible.
So we literally had worship on the highway. So that was, I looked at that as historic.
Oh yeah, that is gangster. I think that is so cool. I think that is so cool. And it boggles my mind that people hear that and they think it's about a virus. How could that possibly be about a virus and not about control? I don't understand.
Yeah, and we proved it right there. And so we had the following Sunday, it was still illegal, but in the meantime, I had a meeting with police and public health and all that. And I said, you know what? If I can choose between a ticket or you all blocking my driveway again, give me a ticket.
Yeah.
So that's what they did next Sunday. They were nice. The first Sunday I called them out as fighting against God, and so one of the officers told me it actually bothered him, and it bothered his conscience, so he did not want to do that again.
Good, because he clearly is. He clearly is.
That's my approach. What I've learned is to say something. It's pointless to argue with them, but to say something that when they go home they will have to think about. Somehow reach their conscience by any chance, and that has seemed to work to some degree. So we had one more Sunday of illegal drive-in service, and prior to that Sunday, the day before that Sunday, there was a court injunction by another church, and the court ruled against it, so saying that no, drive-in church wasn't safe. So we did it on Sunday anyways, got another fine, and then on that Tuesday, our premier goes, you know what, we reviewed it, and actually, as long as people stay in their vehicles and there's only one household in the vehicle, then drive-in church is fine. So, we're gaining it here step by step, and we're just showing our government that church is more than essential.
Yeah.
And that's extremely important, and that we just will not bow for this.
Yeah, and I want to wish you a congratulations, and I'm very glad to hear that, and I take that as a win. But I really struggle hearing about these battles, even when they're won, because why do we have to ask when it's in the charter? We have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that allows us to worship. And you know, Bonnie Henry, who I like to call Commie Henry, she's our health minister, and she made a statement that that God is not a building. God is not a building, and so you can worship in different ways. And I just, people hear that and they accept it, you know. But who is she, an unelected official, to tell me what God is and what God isn't? And you know, because there the best lie is rooted in a little bit of truth, you know, because there is a little bit of truth to that. And I, you know, I've known people throughout the years that do base their faith on church and their image at church and things like that. And I, in my opinion, that's not the right way to go about life. But that's also just my judgment on another person, and that's mine to have, and it is what it is. But there is something extremely vital and extremely essential about meeting in these groups, whether it's an AA meeting in a church, which has been vital for me. I think I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for some of those meetings. And even the church that I go to in Kelowna, they had a young lady come in, I think it was a few weeks ago, who was on the verge of suicide. And I wasn't involved in this, but I've heard about it, where the leaders of our church got together and gathered and talked her through what was going on, and she's still here. And so it is not up to Bonnie Henry, and it is not up to any of these elected officials or these unelected officials that somehow got into positions to run the country. It is not up to them to decide what God is and what God isn't, because it wasn't the people in the church that saved that woman. It's God working through them, right?
Yeah, and you know, I agree with if your top doctor there is saying that God is not a building, true, but I believe also that church is not a building, but yet it is important for us people to gather together for church. You know, you can't hug a screen, you can't worship with a screen, and all these things. It has its place, and it's good to do it sometimes, but it is very important for believers to come together. You know, Hebrews 10 tells us to not forsake the assembling of ourselves together, and that can't be done virtually. You can't assemble. You know, also the church is compared to a body, where it says that every joint supplies. And so when you're in a worship service and you observe the worship going forth, you see a different individual, his face is lighting up with a smile, or they shout an amen, or they raise their hand. You know, that's how we encourage one another. That's how we communicate in worship. And it's just not complete by us all sitting behind a screen and just seeing our blank faces and just seeing the preacher. Preaching is, we often say preaching is 50-50, you know, it's 50 up by the preacher, 50 up in the crowd. So it's not complete. You can't call it church gathering if you're all virtual, doing it virtually.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, anybody who would say that the gathering for church is not essential, anyone who would say that has never felt the vibration in a room lift with worship music and wept tears of joy. Nobody, and you know, I try to be careful on the show when I talk about my faith, because I'm a deeply flawed man. You know, I really am, and anybody who listens to my show is aware of my shortcomings, and so I want to be careful for the listeners that I don't come across as self-righteous or anything like that. But I have these experiences in my life, and I don't know what my life would be like if I hadn't had them, and if it wasn't for people like you that will tell the truth, you know, and that will go, because Constantine used to feed people like you and me to lions, people that wouldn't renounce their faith, and we used to willingly go into the pit of the lions, and now, you know, these people that I don't want to call anybody names today, but these people that won't stomach a $2,300 fine when they know how necessary these gatherings are. Have you had have you had arguments or conversations with other faith leaders, or in my opinion, people that used to be faith leaders? Have you had conversations with other people in your community or your province?
I've had some. It seems like um, a lot of these don't approach me for some reason. I'm going to try to approach them in my turn. Um, Actually, there's a committee in Steinbach here. I forgot the name of the committee, but it's basically a board of churches. There's like 23 churches on board, and they all signed a letter that they're in support of public health and regulations. And so basically, and they signed that letter right after we started, standing up. And so, I know their approach. They're not, and a lot of these people, it seems like you can hardly reason with them. I like to put in one point here, and that is they all come up with Romans chapter 13, which says we need to pray for our government. We need to submit to them. I'm for that. I believe in that. But it also says in the same chapter, like in context with the same verses, I believe it's verse 3, it says that they are not a terror to good works, but to evil. And that's why we should respect them. Now, what do we do if they flip that and they're now a terror to good works and are promoting evil? Do we then just keep submitting? Do we then keep bowing for that? Or is that a time where Christians choose to rather obey God than man?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very well put. And it really drives me nuts hearing that Romans 13 so much. And there's a church in West Kelowna that they've got a digital billboard up front, and it says thou shalt wear a mask, Hygenesis 2:16. And every time I drive by it, I am fuming mad. I am it just these people that have deserted their congregation and left their people high and dry. Like, I'm sure they're doing Zoom calls and I'm sure they're doing these things, but that's my opinion on it, is that they have deserted the people when they needed them most. When suicides are at the highest, drug overdoses are at the highest, people need God now more than they ever have before. And they've shut their doors and they make jokes about it. And I'm just appalled. I'm truly appalled by it. But
yeah, oh, I haven't heard that one before. So that's
pretty bad, hey? Pretty bad.
That's fun. Yeah.
Now, with your background, I wanted to get in a little bit into what your life was like before coronavirus. So are you the lead pastor of your church, or what is your situation there?
I'm actually not the lead pastor. We have our pastor here. I'm a minister. I preach pretty frequently, and I am the spokesperson. So I talk to the media, and I'm like the face, so to speak. And that is, I got put into that situation because I ended up getting all the tickets and all the people talking about me. So, but I don't mind. I'm actually enjoying it. So
great.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're a hero, and I don't use that word lightly. I do think that you're a hero, and I'm very grateful for what you're doing. How is the funding? Are you able to, like, are these fines crippling you in the church, or, and I don't know if you want to, if you don't want to get into this, that's all good. But I am curious how that's been, if it's causing visceral harm to your situation or the church's finances.
Well, so far we haven't paid a single one. Look, we have a constitution in place. We got some laws, and I want to stress that some laws, not bylaws, not mandates. We got some laws in place in this country that are supporting us, that are backing us, and so we will be challenging it. Hilarious part about that is that I've just heard from somebody who's gotten fined before I did, and they have this pre-hearing. Like, so I'm getting to know about the steps, you know. So you call in, you plead not guilty, and then you get a pre-hearing appointment over the phone. So these officials, what they're doing in that pre-hearing is they're going to see how much you're going to pay, you know, and they would negotiate with you. So this
Really?
individual was this individual wasn't going to pay anything anyway. So at the end of the phone call, he just said, "I'm just curious, if I were to agree to pay, how low would you all go today?" So our tickets are not $2,300; they're $1,296 over here.
Okay.
So they said they would go as low as 300.
It's
So
like,
that tells me a lot. That tells me that they actually believe these tickets are going to get thrown out, and if they can get a couple people to at least pay $300, then they made some money, you know.
it's like you're bartering at a market in Pakistan or something, hey? Like, throw 300 is the best I can do, buddy. That's amazing. That's amazing. And that it's something that I've been amazed watching people that I know are generally very rule of law oriented. Watch them justify these things going on where it's not law. It's as far as I'm concerned, they're just making it up as they go along. You know, well, we'll keep restaurants open, but you got to wear the mask until you get to your table. You know, these arbitrary things that don't make sense. And you know, and the biggest one, I think the most flabbergasting thing I've ever heard is them putting so much work into banning your session where everybody was in their cars, because that is so beyond safe in every facet.
Yeah,
I don't, that one is undeniably tyrannical. That is tyranny as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
for sure.
But do they now, I wanted to go back a little bit again, just to get an understanding of where you're coming from, because I think with the freedom movement out here in Kelowna and around there, me and a lot of people in the movement, not everyone, definitely not everyone, but a lot of us are rebellious at heart. You know, a lot of us grew up, you know, not doing what we were told, and and it shows. You know, like me, I like to make rap music and talk crazy and you know, push free speech to the limit and things like that. But is all this confrontation, is it a new thing for you? Is it something that you're used to, or that you grew up with, or what's it like for you going through all this kind of thing?
So I totally hear where you're coming from. For me, I believe that Christians have it in their background. You know, Christians have been confronted all along. There have been definitely times where it's been more intense. If we look back in the history, persecutions that different Christians have faced, and so it's not really anything new for us as faith-based to be facing opposition from governments or rulers. My own personal history, I was born and grew up in Germany, and my parents were very much for giving us homeschooling or private schooling. They didn't want us growing up in the public school system, which I'm so thankful they stood for that. But in Germany, believe it or not, that wasn't legal, and I'm talking already back in 2002.
Really?
Back then already, it was not legal in Germany. So I grew up going to court cases because of that. And my parents took a strong stand against it. They had Christian lawyers helping them. And so these Christian lawyers finally told them, look, they're taking one by one, they're taking all these laws away from us that support you. So right now, we don't have anything to support you with from the law, from the standpoint of law. So they said, you're going to have to move somewhere else, or you're going to have to let your children go to public school. That's when my parents made the decision to move to Canada, because that was the land of freedom, which we now see is not going into the direction of freedom anymore. But so I grew up with my parents taking that strong stand and you know, confronting the system of laws that they were putting in place there.
Wow.
And I've actually heard stories from my grandpa, my father. They were born in Russia, and there was a persecution of Christians there. Actually, my father's great grandfather was picked up one night by the communist Russians and executed, basically shot.
Is that right?
So, and that I'm talking about 1900. So Christians have always faced opposition, and I'm actually not discouraged by what I'm facing now. I'm actually rejoicing because some of my faith or spiritual side of things actually become more real now and not so mystical. Where we can say that we rejoice that we're counted worthy to suffer persecution for our Savior.
That is amazing. What an incredible story. And it resonates with me a lot as well, because I used to be very liked, I used to be a very appreciated person. And from my perspective, and it is my perspective, there's other dynamics at play with what I'm about to say, but what I did was I used to drink a lot, and I used to live very wrong, and I won't get too into it here with you, but I used to live a very, very sinful life a lot. And over the years, I came to terms with the fact that this new age spirituality that I had gotten into, where these ideas of, well, I'm God and I can manifest my own universe. That means that I'm God, and ideas like that I had come into. I came to grips with the fact that they were all lies, and that without God's law and without a predetermined path laid in place by our Creator, that we would be led to a place oddly reminiscent of Sodom and Gomorrah, very reminiscent of that. And my situation was that I to the best of my abilities, right, I surrendered and gave my life to Christ, and I stopped drinking, and I made lots of different changes. And it wasn't until I did that a lot of people started having a problem, with what I was doing, because I, instead of being hungover on a Saturday, I had been up the day before reading and researching and doing different things. And so Saturday morning, I'm not hungover. I'll go to a rally, for freedom, because the churches are closed, And I think that for me, it was very illuminating that by going down that path, generated persecution and generated dislike by a society that I would consider to be in a fallen state. Would you agree with that we exist in a fallen state?
I believe we're born with a fallen nature, and that in order to have a relationship with God, we need to, like you said, give over our life to Jesus and live with him and have his support in order to live straight.
Yeah, I sure think so. I'm convinced. I really am, because I've seen what happens, and there's a lot of good, and it doesn't always get easier, right? But I just want to reiterate how thankful I am for you and for what you're doing and your mission. And I can tell you, as far as I can tell, you and I know the same God. And whoever put that sign up of Hygienesis, thou shalt wear a mask, this might be too far of a stretch, but I sure don't think that I know the same God that they do.
I don't think that is too far-fetched, because honestly, Christianity has been way too divided already. And what I'm seeing, what's happening right now, is that Christians more and more are finding the importance of standing together, dropping the differences, and standing together in unity, because that's what it's going to take to stand, against basically socialist communism coming in. And communism has always been against Christianity. They make the church and the state the same thing, and they've always fought against religion. So if we want to be able to stand, it will take the entire church, all Christians, banding together and standing together. And anybody that is not willing to do that, I I I would believe that they might be serving another Jesus.
Yeah, and that's it gives me a little bit of peace that you would agree with me. And it's interesting the political side of it, because my claim to fame, kind of my first real being time of being thrust into the limelight and this reality, was I was at the Vancouver mega rally, and I ended up on global news. I ended up there, and in that same clip, they showed a woman who they were obviously trying to portray her as crazy. And this is a woman who I talked to when I was there, and I got to know her a little bit. And the clips that they showed on the news was her yelling at the camera, and she's got a very thick accent. I believe she was from Poland. She was from somewhere that had where they had fled socialism. And I believe it was Poland. And she's yelling at the camera, and she goes, "You are fake news. All you do is lie to people." And they show the clip of and they show the clip of her screaming and yelling, and she looks crazy. But what in my opinion, what the red pill is, that the paradigm shift is that she's not crazy. She knows what's happening because she's seen it before. And it's like you say, it's in vehement opposition to Jesus Christ, and it's in vehement opposition to freedom and individualism, what's happening right now. But what do you say to people, because this is something I hear a lot in BC, because we have a lot of tree huggers out here. What do you say to people that say Jesus was a socialist because he said it's easier for a rich man to go through the eye, or to get a camel through the you can probably quote this verse better than I can.
Have a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God.
Yeah. Do you think Jesus was a socialist?
I don't think so. I know God has always been for theocracy, which is God leading the people through a prophet. So I believe Jesus was strongly for unity and a oneness, and that would include, some are more fortunate than others. And if you have that unity and Christian love one to another, that those that got more wealth would help and support those that are not so well off.
And to me, the real distinction is that he would want us to do that willingly, not by force,
not force,
right?
Not force. The scripture actually says in Malachi that he loveth a cheerful giver. So,
well,
anything that's forced is not real anyway. At that point, I believe he says, you know what, keep it. I don't want it. But if it comes willingly with a love, then that's what is acceptable. And if we as Christians actually really looked at it, we all deserve, all of us deserve to go lost and go to hell. We all deserve that. But now Jesus came and gave his life as a sacrifice. Really, anything that I have belongs to him anyway. So, and the scripture also says that whatever you do to one of these little ones, you've done it unto me.
Right.
It's easy for people to say, you know what, I will do this for Jesus, I will give this to Jesus. Well, you can do that by giving it to somebody who's really needy.
I think that's a great point. And it's something that's obvious to me is that the reason you never meet a socialist billionaire is because it could never exist. They would have given all their money away.
Yeah.
But listen, Tobias, I've said it probably too much, but I want to just say thank you so much for what you're doing. I think that you are so important. Do you have anything to plug or promote? Is there anywhere where people can donate or anything like that?
You know what? We're not asking for anything. People have been wanting to support, and we have a Facebook page with directions on it on our website, but we're not asking for anything. what I did want to ask you, without trying to get off the point, but you're from Kelowna, is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I was actually planning to move to Kelowna in 2020.
Really?
Because of the lockdown, we postponed, and looking back, I believe that's God's will, because here I am now taking this stand, being a support. But I do love Kelowna, and unofficially, I'm gonna try to come there for February 13th for the mega rally.
Really? Oh, Tobias, you're warming my heart, my man. That would be amazing.
I'm hoping I can work it out. It's still unofficial, but we're trying to work in that direction, because I got lots of people that have contacted me from the area, people like yourself and other people that I know from the area that I just feel like I'd like to connect with in person.
Yeah, and for all my flaws, I know people. I do know people, and you and I'll have to keep in touch, and I think we can make some big things happen, because I think Kelowna would love to hear your message, my man. I think we're ready for it, and we'd love to have you. We would love to have you, and we'll definitely have to keep in touch. And you got me very excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited too.
Awesome.
And it's amazing how we all connect through this whole pandemic. Their point was to divide us and to keep us separated, but they've actually done the opposite, because people are coming together like they haven't. Some people say like they haven't since World War II. So, it's working against them, whatever they're trying to do.
Whatever whatever they're trying to do, I don't even know anymore. Nothing good, I'll tell you that. All right, you guys. Well, this has been another episode of the Redpill Rapper Show on thoughtcrimes.ca. Find it on the Jack Clausen Radio Network on all streaming platforms. Just look up the Jack Clausen Radio Network and any episode titled The Redpill Rapper Show. That's me. Take care, people. Be brave, live free, take your vitamin D, and hug your family. We love you, people.
I prayed. I was telling the other guys in the yard about Jesus, and I was going up to people readers that I had stabbed, that I had in other fight gangs that I had been looking for, and told them I'm a Christian now. Will you forgive me? And then began to tell them about how Jesus died for them. Amen. And they were listening. They were listening to what I was saying.
Yeah. Look, I walk alone down these lonely streets of cobbled stone. My head is fucking ringing and I'm stoned. Last night Tinderella took me home. That slipper did not fit over her toes. I'm acting like a child, but I'm grown. I used to have a heart, but it is gone. My eyes are vacant and they're overdrawn. That sinful life has turned me to a pawn in a larger game of Satan versus God. I picked the losing side and joined the squad. I'm rolling with the devil and I'm acting all disheveled. I cannot get on the level of that churchian squad. Gave the devil that nod. I want a godly body while I'm popping all that molly. If I start to feel sad, I'll probably start to party, cause I fucking hate myself and I hate everybody else. I'm saved, and you gotta no longer to pray. Freedom through your word, I feel brave. I'm smashing all my chains, I'm not a slave to the women, drugs, and liquor that I crave. You spilled his blood and in it I will pay. I pray Jesus, will you smash me on my grave? Cause I wanna live again, I don't wanna live in sin, I just wanna fucking live again. I can never do it, I can never pull through it. Turned away from him and I never even knew it. Made some big money and I blew right through it. Work a big workload, never chewed through it. Bought a new whip and now I'm cruising. Can't stop boozing, can't stop losing. Behind the wheel, my eyes are drooping. I'm so faded that I can't take it. I just fear I'm never gonna make it. Pedal to the metal while I'm all disheveled. Pounding that gavel cause I'm on another level. That shit was so fun, I said I'm gonna revel. Music bumping so loud I can't even think. Comfortable enough, they're gonna put me in the tank. Whiskey on my breath and lies on my tongue. That was the last chance, I don't get another one. I was having so much fun and now it's all gone. Four concrete walls and I only get that one phone call. But who the fuck am I supposed to call? Cause the devil gave me dial tone. Now my sins I must atone. Jesus, are you there? Do you even fucking care? I'm a and I get to live it twice. I'm talking right now, that's no past life. Pay no attention to my past lives. I'm not gonna do it for the afterlife, cause my road's paved with gold and I feel so clean. He took everything, every burden, every scar. Mitch, look at where you are. You've come so fucking far now, look at where you are. You're a warrior, a beast, a dog kept on a leash. Through discipline and freedom, now I'm rocking in his kingdom. I feel so free. Would you ride with me if I told you he could give you everything you've ever dreamed? He'll foil every satanic scheme. He'll clear the smoke screen, clear out your eyes, and then he'll make you happy cry. I swear to God, he'll be your f***ing guy. You'll have his shoulder every time you cry. I'm saved.